So, good morning, guys. So today we're working on main menus for 4B. So all I've done so far is I've created a project called Interfaces 4B, so it's easy to find when I go back to all my projects. And I've used a third-person template to make sure I've got some generic assets to run around and test things. So the first thing we need to do is create a new level. So if we right-click in the content browser at the bottom of the screen, we're going to go to Level, and we'll just name this Main Menu. If I double-click on it to open it and save the current scene, the level we start off with is pure black. There's no assets to it. There's no lights, no post-processing, nothing. We want it to be completely empty so that when it comes to loading the game up or returning to the screen, it's a really quick transition. We don't want loading times to get to something as boring as a main menu. Once we're here, I've already made a folder called User Interfaces, and within this folder, if we right click, User Interface Widget Blueprint, we're going to call this one Main Menu Widget. There we go, and we open this up. So this is the UMG window, Unreal's Motion Graphics Editor. That's where we're going to do all of our designing for the widgets. Widgets are screen overlays. They go on top of the rendered out frames from the game, so they're not affected by your post-process effects in game. Right, so the user interface is pretty similar to what we've already used. We've got a canvas panel on the top left corner, which is all of our tools. On the right hand side is our details tab, where we can look at macro settings, and the bottom left is the hierarchy, where we can see everything within our design. So canvas panels are really handy tools. We need to use these kind of intelligently break up our scene. It's essentially a container or a parent group. So I'll come back to that momentarily. So the first thing first, if we drag out a background, so if we search for image, we'll just drag it out onto the canvas panel and select the asset, and we have got just a plain white box. And the attributes tab, 0, 0 is always going to be the top left corner. So if we used to move it away and we wanted to snap back, 0 that out, it'll be right there. Size X and size Y, so we're working at 1920 by 1080 by default. So if we just change those settings, beautiful. And this little star in the corner or flower is your anchor point. So it's the point of rotation for the asset if you used to manipulate it through events, or when the player comes to resizing their screen. Having this intelligently placed is going to ensure that all the assets stay together and deform in a uniform way. Yes, Graham, how are you?
I'm good.
Good. I'm just recording a tutorial for those guys quickly, so you're live on TV. Don't swear or say anything profound. Yeah. Okay. Right. So we've got an image. So this will be our background. So if we make sure we name this, so main menu BG. Right. So that's beautiful. But yeah, I think I should have done that in a different order. I should have had a canvas panel for this, because whenever we load up a game, the common convention is that we'd have a loading screen or a splash screen where we've got the developers' logos playing out, or maybe an opening cinematic for the game. So we don't necessarily always want the main menu background to be visible. So if we insert a new canvas panel, and we'll call this top level panel. So this is going to be the first layer of our user interface, and I'll zoom in. The panel is really small, so we just got to resize it quickly. So 1920 by 1080, and before I click away from this, we need to make sure we tick is variable in the top right corner so we can access this later when we're trying to code visibility or anything else. And now I've just got to select the main menu and click and drag it with left click so it becomes a child of the top level panel. So now we can see main menu is slightly inset from top level panel, indicating that it is a child of the asset above it. So now if I was to grab, if I lock main menu background, the actual image, I can't grab the image file anymore. Oh, I shouldn't be able to. Go back. There we go. Okay, that shouldn't have allowed me to grab it, but no, it wasn't. So it wasn't moving the asset; it was moving the top level group. So let me just zero this out. There we go. So now I can turn on visibility for the main menu background on its own. As a group, sorry, not on its own. It's still really early, so I'm a little bit still warming up. Alright, so we've got main menu background. Let's unlock it again. If we scroll down on the right hand side in the details tab, if we go to appearance and brush and expand this down, we want to assign an asset to the background to give us something to look at, right? Digimon wallpaper 1080. Okay, we'll just use that. There's that. Menu BG. Okay, so I'm just saving as a JPEG, and back in the content browser, I can just right click, import to game, find my file. Was it this one? Yes. Okay, now normally we could use a drop down menu and select our file, but for some reason when I do this I normally get an error. But if you do get an error trying to use the drop down menu, if you instead just click and drag it, it will highlight the box green, so it's indicating it is the correct file format. It's expecting that type of asset. You can just drop it in and it will link up your asset to the main menu. So within this, we've got a canvas panel which we start off with as default, which controls everything within this widget. We create a second canvas panel which has got a main menu image attached behind it. If we wanted to make this background slightly transparent, we could always drop down the tint and change to alpha. I can't imagine why I would want a slightly transparent background, that'd be weird. Alright, so now if we drag out another canvas panel, we want this canvas panel to be a child of the top level panel, and this one is going to be, where is it? There it is. This canvas panel, come on. Okay, top level panel is in the right place, main menu PG 00. So as we're doing this, we're going to need to lock assets so that we don't accidentally grab the wrong thing. There we go. Right, so this is going to control this little canvas panel that we just created. Is going to be the main menu buttons. So main menu buttons top, because there's going to be multiple layers. So this first canvas panel, I've scaled it up to just roughly fit the height and width of the button scales. So if I drag out a button, I'm going to make it a child of the main menu buttons group or panel. I can just click and drag on the buttons, scale them up, and if I select the button, Control C, select the main menu buttons top panel group, and I can just paste it. I had to reselect the group so that it makes sure that the asset that I paste is a child of the same panel. I'm just roughly repositioning them. So I just want, obviously in that case I pasted whilst button 1 was selected, so it made it the wrong relationship of inheritance. So there we go. So I've got 3 buttons. This one will be start game, options, and quit. So I'll just quickly drag out some text onto these. So if I just drop the text directly onto the button, it's going to automatically set up that child and parent relationship. Select the text block, and over here under content text we can change the name. So start game, this will be options, and quit game. There we go. Right, so we can change things about the font. We can increase the size. So I think probably 58 would do. I'm going to make the options text and quit game text slightly smaller because I want the priority to be on loading the game. So it's just kind of a slight visual weighting towards start game. Or maybe make this one even smaller. We don't want no one to leave that game. Right, within the button, we have got a few style things we can edit. So under the background, we just had a single list of assets that we can change, like in terms of the alpha, the color, and the image. However, for buttons, we've got the same settings, but for normal, as in its default state, when the cursor's hovering over it, as well as when it's pressed. So when it comes to designing your assets, you need to make sure that in Photoshop you do design 3 variations of the buttons for when they're interacted with in different ways. So we've got start, options, and quit. So if we compile and save the screen, but before we leave it, if we select main menu's top buttons, top group, I didn't enable variable. There we go, compile and save, and just close this window. We need to make sure we actually tell UE4 how to draw this to the screen. So if we go to blueprints, open level blueprint, and we want to use the begin play. So as soon as the level loads, we want it to create a widget. And what this construction node is going to do is it's going to summon your created interface into its memory. So we use a drop down menu, we'll tell it which widget to load, so main menu. The owning player is telling it which player are we assigning this menu to, so whose screen is it going to get summoned to, or whose memory it's being sent to. So get player controller, there we go, and from there we're going to drag out the return value and do add to viewport. And the very last step is we need to make sure that the player actually has a cursor to interact with the buttons. So we dragged it out, set show, set show cursor, no, just turn that off. Aha, set show mouse cursor. There we go. So if we drag that out, so initially I had context sensitive turned on, where UE4 is trying to suggest intelligently what nodes of programming I want. In this case, it didn't know that I'd want this. So then I just need to drag this along so that it knows I'm enabling the same character that's having the widgets drawn for, and tick true, compile and save. So if I play the game now, the menu should load up. The viewport by default isn't set to a normal aspect ratio. It's going to change based on your computer monitor's display and your project settings defaults. But if we launch it as a standalone game, so selected, here it goes. There we go. So we can see it is working perfectly fine. We click on my buttons, we've got little effects that occur. It's beautiful. And let me just get rid of that screen. Gone. Right, so now we need to add functionality. So if we load the main menu widget, we're going to select the button, and if we scroll down in the details tab, at the very bottom we've got all of the events we could have. So if we click on released, so as soon as the player clicks on this button and they release the left click, it's going to do an event. So open level, there it is. And we just need to enter the name for the level we're summoning. So if we've used the third person template, we've already got a default level in here. To make sure I don't type the level name wrong, I'm going to select the level, press F2 so that I can rename it. I just Control C to copy the name, and back here Control V to paste the name in. So if I just quickly relaunch this in the viewport, I click press start game, and we go into the third person map. Beautiful. Right, so going back again, user interfaces, did it in the wrong folder, there we go. Right, so back here we're going to add the same thing for the other button. So quit game, we'll scroll down on the right side, on released, quit game. Nice and direct, nothing else to edit about that one. That one works straight out of the box. Now the next one, options. We want to, when we click this, we want to hide all of these buttons in this first group and show a second group's set of buttons. So what I'm going to do, just for the sake of showing how this works, I'm going to select the main menu button's top canvas panel group. I'm going to press Control C, and excuse me, I'm going to select the top level panel. So I've already controlled C'd main menu buttons top group. I'm selecting its parent, the top level panel, and pasting. So I've got a duplicate of this group. Make sure I've got it. I'm going to just place it over to the right so it's clearly in a different location. I'm going to rename this group main menu buttons sub. So it's a subgroup. This is going to be just things like video options, audio options, and I don't know, back. Okay, let's just drag that down a bit. There we go. All right. So before we actually code any functionality, we need to make sure that we set their initial states to be appropriate. So under behavior in the details tab, what I did is I selected main menu buttons top group, behavior, visibility, visible, and if we select the subgroup, this one's going to be set to hidden by default. So when we quit on options button, we're going to add an event released, set visibility. There we go, beautiful. And because when we've set up our assets, we've ticked variable in the top right corner, under the variables in this window, we actually have all of our respective groups visible. So if I drag that out and get, because we want to use it as a reference. So main menu buttons, when the options is pressed, we're going to set it to hidden. And if I just copy and paste this node, link it up again, this time we'll grab main menu buttons sub, get, link that up, and we'll set that to visible. So compile and save. Just back here, I'm going to grab back. I'm going to quickly add an event for this as well. So we're adding tolerance, so we're going to assume that the player is going to get to the screen. They don't want to get trapped on here. They might want to go back. It might have been a misclick. We can just control, copy and paste this code, because we're essentially doing the exact same thing, but we're going to reverse it. So hidden becomes visible, visible becomes hidden. Compile and save. And if we press play, okay, so we know quick game works. Yep. Options loads that up. Back brings it back. Cool, beautiful. And that's the absolute basics of setting up a main menu. I'll make another video or two on how to set up a motion graphic